So continuing on the theme of algebra, in this video we'll be looking at the differences between equations, expressions, formulas and identities. Now algebra can be very confusing with lots of letters and lots of things that look and sound the same. However, to make algebra easy, it's really important you understand what things are and what the differences are. Now one thing that is heavily mentioned in algebra is expressions, equations, formulas and identities. Now the latter is probably something that you may not have heard of because it's not really focused on much in secondary maths. However, it is something that we will cover in this video. Now when you are deciding the main differences between these four things, really what you want to focus on is the number of letters you can see and the equal sign. Now if you can focus on those two things, it makes knowing the difference between these four things that just so much easier. So with regards to an expression, now before I get started, I certainly would recommend you making a note of this table both for your revision or in your exercise book to know the difference between the four of them. So again, let me just put a infamous bubble around it. So let's have a look at the first one. So in terms of expression, now an expression is where you've got one or more letters and you have no equal sign. An equation is where you've only got one letter only. Now the key thing with this is that it's one letter physically. Now if a letter has got a power attached to it, you can count it as one letter. So for example, if you have something where you've got a collection of x squareds and x's, then that counts as one letter. However, if you've got a collection of x squareds, y's and x's, then there you go, that will count as two letters. So therefore that would not represent an equation. And you will also have an equal sign in an equation. So an equation is one letter, equal sign, boom. Now formula is where you've got more than two letters or more, and one letter is often the subject. Now what I mean by having one letter as subject is you'll have a letter equals and then whatever it equals. So you'd have one letter by itself on one side of the equal sign and then everything else, a collection of other things on the other. So for example, you might have y equals, f equals, h equals something, and that would often represent a formula as long as it has got two letters or more, including that the letter that it's the subject. And you'll also have an equal sign in there as well. Now an identity is something that is more high level algebra, but basically you will tend to have one or more letters in an identity, and you've also got this symbol, which is what we call like a triple equal sign, which basically means identical to. And let's go a little bit further into what an identity actually is. So an identity is where an algebraic term can be written in two ways, and that is always true for all values of whatever the letter the letter actually equals. Now it uses this triple bar or triple equal sign, which is what we prefer, but basically means that it represents that it's identical to. So as an example, if we look at these algebraic sort of notations, so here I've got 3 and then bracket x plus 2. Now if I expand the brackets out, it's going to leave me with 3x plus 2. Now if I start off with 3x plus 2 and I let x equals, let's say 4, then I'd end up with 4 plus 2, which is 3 times 6, which is 18. Now if I took the other side of 3x plus 6, and again I let x equals 4, so here I'm going to have 3 times 4 plus 6, which is 12 plus 6, which equals 18. And you can see there that I've got my two answers are exactly the same, even though I've taken one side as being this and the other side as being that. So whatever values you substitute in, whether it's the left hand side or the right hand side, they both should give you the same answer. But the biggest notable difference between what makes an identity stand out is definitely this triple bar equal sign that automatically just should ring alarm bells in your head by saying, right, you know what, that is definitely an identity. So let's have a look at an example question of how this would commonly get asked to you in an exam or test or even a homework or a classwork. So here we're asked to match up the algebraic notation with its name. Now if you want to have a go at these questions yourself, by all means pause the video and have a go. I definitely would reference and have a look at the table to help you decide which of the following are either an equation, expression, formula or an identity. So let's have a look at the answers. I'll treat each one as it is. So with this first one here, I can see that I've got two letters and I've got an equal sign, which therefore means that that's going to represent a formula. Let's write down formula. Now, in terms of this next one, here I've got one letter and an equal sign, so that there is going to represent an equation. For the third one here, I've got two letters, but I haven't got an equal sign, so anything that hasn't got an equal sign will automatically be an expression. With this fourth one here of f equals ma, so here I've got more than one letter and I've got an equal sign, which therefore means that that is going to be a formula. Then with this next one, so you can see here I've got more than two letters and I've got an equal sign, so that also is going to be a formula. Then for this next one, you can see the biggest thing that stands out is this triple bar. So without going into further explanation, that's going to be an identity. And then moving on to the next one. So again, I've got more than two letters or two or more letters, or I should say more than one letter, and I've got an equal sign, so that there is going to represent a formula. For this next one here, I've got one letter and an equal sign, so even though I've got an x squared and an x, it still counts as one letter, and that is going to represent an equation. So red pen out. Oh, that's orange. Go for this one here. That's going to represent an equation. With this next one of minus 6x equals 18, so again I've got one letter and an equal sign, so that too is going to represent an equation. And my final one of x plus n all squared is identical to that one. Again, it's got the triple bar symbol, so that has to mean it is identity. There we go.